Welcome to the 2022 Kentucky Bourbon Festival and the first edition of the Bourbon 30 Talk Show. Thank you so much. Welcome to the 2022 Kentucky Bourbon Festival and the first edition of the Bourbon 30 Talk Show. We have a massive crowd here, as you can see. Hopefully our cameras get, all three of you. We're just starting off, right? We're just warming up. We're not as hot as these guys yet. You know, the Aviation Project, they're badasses, clearly. We actually had a Bourbon 30 house dancer. Hopefully that was caught on camera. She was cutting a rug, or cutting a lawn, however you want to say it. But anyway, so the Bourbon 30 Talk Show is about whiskey, whiskey and the people who make it, and oftentimes whiskey and the people who cook with it. And that's the case here right now with my first two guests, Rachel and Newman Miller, owners of the Harrison Smith House. Come on to the stage, Rachel and Newman.
Hey.
Hey.
This is the best crowd I've seen all day. I appreciate it.
They're so good looking.
Nobody will object. What was that, Rachel?
They're so good looking.
They are so good looking. Look at them. I'm telling you, we only have good looking people when there's bourbon being consumed, right?
You're right.
Everybody's handsome, sexy, good looking, all of it. You guys are, well, Newman, you've been around a long time for the Bardstown scene. So you know how the Bourbon Festival has changed. Hell, it's like almost in pace with your life. How old are you now?
39.
39.
39.
So 31 years we've been in.
Yes, sir.
And Rachel's a visitor, a permanent visitor from Indiana, right?
Permanent visitor.
But you've seen a lot of these.
I have.
Rachel actually served as one of our board members, which is how should we say, a stressful volunteer job sometimes.
It's a civic duty.
Civic duty.
Awesome. A little civic duty.
So, in case you don't know, their restaurant is about, what is it, crow flies a quarter mile from here?
Yeah, at the most. It's only about a 5-minute walk for us to come over.
It was a 7-minute walk in dress shoes last night.
All right, yeah.
I came over. That was it's like I should have had some more comfortable footwear on. But talk about the Harrison Smith House, the history of it, and how you guys wound up owners of it.
Yeah, so the Harrison Smith House, built in 1780. So we're one of the oldest stone homes in Nelson County. And then the food we cook is really pretty simple. We try to be of the place. We do everything we can to show off Kentucky. We're proud to be here in Bardstown and really use a lot of the farmers that are close and try to keep it close to home.
So last night you had 20 people. You do a lot of private dinners. The restaurant only holds about 30 people, right?
We can do...
Basically?
We can do up to 90 if we include the patio.
Inside?
No.
Including the patio.
Including the patio.
We did a dinner for Bourbon Pursuit not too long ago. It was 110. So we can do it. Just takes a little extra.
A couple of tents and yeah.
Kenny and Ryan, they just have to go big.
Exactly.
They have to go big. Showing off, those two.
And then
hopefully
for us,
they can hear me.
Yeah, 35 to 50 is the max for inside. 35, 45 is both dining rooms but what we do 90% of the time are private events. So we're working with distilleries that are bringing in customers that are buying private barrels a lot of the time, and then a lot of them are bourbon groups. So it's a bunch of people that get together and do their tours or buy barrels together, and then they come and do bottle shares with us.
So if I were to ask you to look at your menu, and everything changes now, it's not a set menu, everything's private, how much of that menu is influenced by bourbon or American whiskey in general?
God, I mean, it's hard to say what's not. If you use local animals,
pour bourbon in the garden.
You know what? That's the one we
tomatoes infused.
Pour out one for them in the garden.
We just won't say what brand that is.
Yeah, we won't say which one we pour out, but yeah, I mean,
it's usually half water, so it's okay, right?
You're right. Well, we always stick with 100 proof at least, so.
Well, that would work out to half.
Yeah, you're right.
The journalist knows some math.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. But yeah, I mean, everything revolves around the bourbon, whether it's the people that are making it that we deal with and we know what they like to eat, or if it's, I mean, every day when we wake up, we smell Barton making it. And I mean, the fact that doesn't influence what we're up to would be a lie, There's just, you smell those flavors all the time and you start to cook with them.
Rachel, you, for lack of a better term, manage the front of the house, right? Because you both are very involved in every piece of the operation. What's it like to see this modern bourbon tourism consumer? Because I bet in the 7 or 8 years I've known you guys, that's changed.
It's completely changed. And honestly, it was changing before COVID, but now the pace that it's going post COVID is astounding, honestly. Um, but yeah, we've done private events now for 6 out of the 8 years that we've been here. And the pace and the demand is, I mean, it's unmatched to where we've been before. And then also, the seasonality is leveling, right? So before it was really high peaks, right? And then you would have these really quiet seasons, and now it's kind of like it's all kind of busy.
Year round?
Yeah.
Year round?
I mean,
Yeah.
January is the only soft month we have, honestly, for the whole year. I mean, if you can get a little bit of Valentine's business, and there's still people that want to hit the Bourbon Trail in February, and then March, it's spring. I mean, whether or not we think it is, like for the bourbon tourist, it's full on spring. There's spring break into March. It's pretty intense now, even in the first quarter. And then December, I think it's fallen off a little bit, but we get so much of the local business for Christmas parties and things like that we don't really notice the tourism drop off in December anymore.
So you get your lovely break in January.
January.
That's
You,
it.
That's
you,
the
get to
one.
flee to
Yeah.
warmer places, I guess.
I'd be lying if we said we didn't schedule our second kid to land right in January.
Yeah, we did our absolute best to have a child in January so
Yeah.
that we would be able to, take off and do all the things necessary to have a baby,
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, we don't know where we're going this year. We might even go colder. We love going to visit her mom up in Brooklyn, because that's where Lisa is doing her
All right, you
distilling.
got to tell who your mom is. You gotta
My
special
mom is the president and master distiller at Widow Jane in Brooklyn. So
Give
she
her a
actually,
lovely name.
yeah, she moved down here. I'm not from here. She moved down before Newman and I ever knew we would move back, and in a very strange
And
chain
her
of
name
events.
is Lisa Roper Wicker.
Yep.
Yep, Lisa
So
Wicker.
if anybody knows anything at all about Widow Jane, this is
Yep.
the blood kin.
Some sort of offspring thing going on.
She's
there.
such a cool lady. She was on the stage last year. Is she even in town this weekend?
She was in town earlier this week. She's back in Brooklyn, and she'll be back on Saturday.
Oh my
So-
gosh. She's,
Yeah, she
she's
stays
quite the
busy.
traveler. So what do
Yeah.
people really want when they have these private dinners? Is there a consistent theme, or do they just trust you guys to really, either be imaginative or just customize it, or what?
I would say so. Almost every single dinner we do, Newman takes the time to call people, find out what exactly they're interested in, things that they have aversions to, dislikes, why they are visiting, and then every menu is bespoke. So we are spending a massive amount of time and energy on the front end, trying to make sure that we're building something that really speaks to the person who's coming to eat with us.
And do you have to coach them through that, or do you have to walk them away from the ledge sometimes? And say,
All of it.
All of it?
I keep a list of things, and now it's a mental list, but that I ask every guest. And it's things about dietary aversions, like Rachel said, down to if they're a chocolate person or a fruit and pastry person. So when we get to dessert, and that's always the most polarizing question, because everybody's either one team or the other. But
Meaning
really-
what? What are the two teams?
Well, team chocolate for dessert, and that's all end all be all, or fruit and pastry. So something like a millefeuille or a cheesecake or something in that regard. And that's always the dividing line that people always pick from, is whether they're team chocolate or not. But a lot of it is just to tell how humorous and excited the people are or not about the meal. Because a lot of times it's secondary. They're there for the bourbon, and then we sort of have to show them that the food is the thing that they're actually there for. And those are fun too.
Do they want to pair whiskey with their food, or is it just that the two happen to be on the same table at the same time?
You know what? A lot of the way we pair things is we believe that good goes with good. And with our little curated bourbon list that we have, we don't have any shelf bottles. So everything on our back bar is a single barrel that's been picked consciously by good palates. And so we believe in all the bourbons back there. And then from a food standpoint, we're tasting and doing our best to make things delicious. And so that's our pairing. Is usually great things go with great things, and you can get nuance, but I feel like that's more of a wine world or even the beer world, where you can really pick out, for us after the first couple, we like to divide everything up between drinking and thinking. And so the first couple drinks of the night or something like that, like our house highball, is for drinking, and not so much thinking about. And then when we get into the neat pours, the old fashions and Manhattans, that's a little bit more for thinking about and really savoring what's in there.
Do people like following that line? I would imagine if they're an aficionado to begin with and coming here for that experience, they like the thinking part.
They do, yeah.
The people who really want to drink certain things typically know what they want, and then we can just go from there. Or they're bringing to do the bottle share. They're bringing their own product because the product that they have far exceeds our ability or desire to build that bar that direction. So
Yeah, we get bourbon parties that people are bringing $50,000 to $100,000 worth of bourbon. To
Oh my
an
gosh,
event.
is that common?
Say it again.
Is that common?
yes,
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Wow.
There's that level of collector, and I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen change over the 8 years is not just how many people are coming, but the level of tourist, not quality of, because anybody that's here, Bardstown's excited, we're excited, everybody. But the ones that are coming that they're used to spending a week in Napa or, a week in these sort of more expensive tourist areas, and they just want somewhere to be able to go and do this. And that's we wanted to bring up with you, part of our next move is we're opening a bar in town. And so hopefully that's going to be a spot
That's a
for.
silly prop. I don't know why I'm reaching for it. But anyway, tell us about the bar.
Well,
so
it's an old laundromat here, and I know what it is. So it's an old laundromat here in town. It's been called Mr. Tubbs for the last 50 years.
Mr.
And,
Tubbs.
Yeah, and that's what we're hoping to
Mr.
turn
Bash
into a
Tubbs.
bar.
Yeah, that's cool. When's it gonna happen?
hopefully second quarter next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Knock
it's
on.
basically a cinder block box right now, so there's a little bit of work to be done.
What part of town's it in?
Between here and our house.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, less than quarter mile away.
On
So-
Stephen Foster?
No,
Maybe, or-
4th Street.
4th Street. Okay.
Right in that little entertainment district that we have sort of set up now in town.
I don't know that I've ever heard of a bar starting in a former laundromat.
You know what? I'm sure there's something out there because a bar goes well in almost anything. But this is, it's a good space. We looked a long time, and
What's
hopefully
going to be
that
unique
happens.
about it? What's going to be the Miller touch to this thing?
We are looking to be a very finite mix of high and low, right? So a comforter, no comforters, but a comfortable place that you can come and get a beer and a shot and be fine, but you can also get a properly made cocktail. Filling a niche that maybe isn't filled here. Willet is here. Their bar is fantastic.
A lot of the
We have a
distillery
lot of
bars,
support,
they're
but their
stepped up.
hours
Yeah.
are different, right? Their hours are tourist hours. They're not
Right.
evening hours. And so that's really what we're looking to do. We're not looking to have the deepest bourbon selection, right? But a very thoughtful one. Things that we want to drink, people we have relationships with, things we want to mix.
So we're not trying to be the next Jack Rose. Jack Rose already is there. They're the best at doing what they do. Delilah's, friends of ours, that do great bars like that. We just want to curate it because people come here and they can go to other bars and try one of everything that exists. We just aren't going to have the back bar for that necessarily. And then snacks. We'll definitely have some food in our bar. We're not putting a vent hood in, but we're still going to do, a selection of snacks.
Now, I've always known you to be a fan of dive bars. I don't know about you, Rachel. Probably you as well.
Yes.
In fact, I think the first time that we ever met at a bar was ADI. Air Devil's Inn in Louisville, for anybody who doesn't know that wonderful dive. Yeah.
Air Devil Inn, it's my favorite bar in Kentucky. So if you're in Louisville, go to the Air Devil Inn on Taylorsville Road.
It's a shower curtain for a bathroom door.
Yeah, it's a true dive bar. I mean,
Adding some perspective.
it's
I've
not.
never been to the bathroom in Air Devil's
Yeah.
Inn.
Yeah, it's not pretending to be a dive bar. It's been doing it since I think 1934.
me?
It's the oldest
gosh.
bar in Louisville
I didn't know that.
of continuous use. And then our second favorite, just so you know, is Chevy Chase Inn in Lexington, and that's the oldest running bar in Lexington.
Didn't know that.
So yeah, your dive bar history of the day.
So that's kind of factoring into what you want to do, though. I mean, that sounds like you guys are low-key people. I mean, you do very high-end restaurant experiences, but you're low-key people. Is that kind of the place that you want to go?
I
Yes.
think so. We're not going to be open late. You know, we're probably a midnight bar, so we're not in for the sort of college party piece of things. Yeah, I guess we are a little bit more low key, and I mean the cocktail list will err on the side of smaller but classic, and really hospitality. I mean, if there's one thing that we try to put in everything we do, it's hospitality first. The food and drink sort of follow behind that. We just want people to feel welcome, come in, have a place to sit, enjoy, and like talk about their experience in Bardstown. You know.
So if money were no object, what would you add to the Bardstown scene, restaurant and or bar scene?
If what would we add?
What would be the ideal thing? What you're doing next?
We're trying to do it. I mean, dead serious. This is it. I think that this is the next progression is a bar. You know, there was.
We had a big conversation this morning about the future.
Yeah, we have one all the
No
time.
secret. So yeah, trying to figure out, you know, what people want, what we want, and what there's space for in Kentucky.
We'd love to do something casual. It's just going to take time to figure out how to get that volume and how to get everybody talks about staff. And one of the things we've always tried to not do is complain about staffing. It is what it is. You know, it's always been tough for people to get good people. It's
Right.
not new. But until we can get really firm on that, we try to keep parties the size we can manage and just deliver on that promise that we're doing for everybody. So it's not really all the money in the world. It'd be all the bodies in the world.
It'd be
You
a-
know, if we had all the people and talent.
A valiant definition for being control freaks, also. Yeah.
It's usually that if a couple does this together, especially in the restaurant business, one is a control freak and one's the easygoing one. But you're both
I
control
think we
freaks.
both control
Yeah.
everything.
Harrison, our other partner's the easygoing one.
His brother, my
That's your
brother.
brother.
My brother's
Yeah.
our general manager, and he's definitely his nickname is the Ghost Bear, and he just sort of floats around and quietly fixes problems calmly, and
Ghost Bear.
he's the exact opposite of us in a lot of ways.
So I showed up last night just to drop off their passes, and Harrison greets me at the door, and he insists I have a tequila shot.
At the Bourbon Festival.
That's hospitality. Now, I am a huge fan of tequila. I'm fairly ecumenical in my spirits consumption. I'm not offended by any of it. But how cool is that to walk into a Kentucky restaurant with steeped in the bourbon tradition like this, and a guy pours you some Cimarron, shakes it over ice, and gives it to you in a glass just because you showed up at the back door. Now, try that out, and whether it's going to work, I don't know. You didn't have a peephole on the door, right?
No,
No.
we didn't know. We didn't know for sure.
I don't think they had peepholes in 1780 when they put those doors on.
But like to your point, the fact that
Speakeasy.
we poured a tequila for you is because we know that's actually what you enjoy, and that goes back to like the sort of bar we want to run or the sort of restaurant we want to run. It's just sort of learning what people like and then
Right.
catering to it. You know, we're not there for us. You know.
How hard is that to figure out what they like? I mean, it's one thing to see what they order, but it's another thing to be ahead of potential trends or at least evolving trends.
So the funny thing is, Trends is all Newman did before we moved here. He was a research and development chef for large corporations, and so he traveled all over the world, literally developing the trend before the trend is a trend, right? So you think
Wow.
about early 2000s and the discovery of, basically uncured bacon, but pork belly, right? Well, now you can even get pork belly on an Arby's sandwich in certain places, but it takes that long, right, for somebody to figure out, and sometimes those trends come from the bottom up, and sometimes they come from the top down, all kinds of things.
What would be a top-down scenario? Somebody famous who's driving the trend, or maybe it's like, well, of course, pork belly was a thing in Asian cuisine for centuries.
Yes.
Right.
Is that the bottom up?
Yes.
I
Or
think-
the rediscover of offal. So,
Yeah, it's a circle trend.
Bits.
Basically, it's the really base level, for lack of a better term, poor food, and we figure out how to remake that into a fancy way is what ends up happening. Fried chicken wasn't fancy, and now you can get it in the fanciest of restaurants. Pork belly
Right.
for America wasn't a fancy cut, and it took a high level chef sort of showing off ethnic food, right? Things that they grew up with, and then giving it value. And so that's what we try to do with the Kentucky food, is just take food that has sort of been marginalized a little bit when you think
Right.
of country and things like that, and just show it as, I don't know, a valuable part of cuisine.
I have a great story for you.
Please tell a story.
So Newman did some work for well-known home-style restaurant that did not historically have any alcohol on the bar, and you can find them at almost every exit in the U.S. And he went in and he proposed a bourbon chicken recipe, and he was told by the CEO that they would never have spirits, they would never say spirits, there would never be bourbon, and they serve spirits now.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
so-
that's not a
Even put it
story
on
about
billboards
bourbon
now.
and where it's going. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what else is.
Yeah, we were.
That is a top-down trend, I would
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Cracker Barrel. I'm allowed to tell anything now. It's been a long time, but I'd write stuff.
The NDA is over.
Yeah, it's no more. I worked with all of them, man. Applebee's, Cracker Barrel, but we would do it on a very different level. You know, it wasn't really what you go in there and try today.
Right. And I'm surprised that they're so vocal about it, because I'm trying to think about where I was driving recently in the South, and
The
I
chicken
saw,
and beer ads.
well, it says
Yeah.
right there on the billboard, and I'm like, man, Cracker Barrel's moving.
Well,
They
they just
are
realized where the margin was, and it's not in pancakes. You know, that's why every restaurant that can get a liquor license gets a liquor license, because it really helps the restaurant business grow. The margins for the sort of thing we do aren't great, and so by selling those drinks, it really helps us, especially as mom and pop restaurants, last and compete with bigger restaurants that can get a higher ticket average.
Let's talk about that. Just very granular perspective on how restaurant prices have risen. I mean, but the inputs from you guys, I mean, what you're buying at wholesale is astronomically higher. I mean, have you ever seen it this bad?
No, I mean, I've been cooking for 24 years, I guess, and I've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, it just hasn't happened in our lifetime. You know, it's just pretty plain. Cases of chicken are $65, and the next day they're $95. You know, eggs.
And you get no warning.
Yeah, eggs have gone from $3 to $4.50 a dozen in the last 6 months. Again, it's almost like labor. You don't want to bother the consumer too much with it, right? Because that's not why people go out to eat, especially at a high level. They're there for entertainment, and you know, it kind of puts a damper on things. But it's definitely changed the way we have to operate. The amount of waste you do or don't have. I mean, our entire model is based on the availability of good quality product at a fair price and labor, high level labor, and just figuring those two things out, really.
Yeah, that's a difficult recipe to work under, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about alcohol that's nice, though, is as the price continues to go up, the consumer understands it a lot better, or at least tolerates it more than food.
Really?
Well, I mean, if you think of like a Booker's is a good example, right? Booker's, when we moved here, was a $42 bottle
Right.
of bourbon wholesale, and now it's $78 a bottle wholesale. And you know, Booker's was a $12 pour, I think, 8 years ago, and now it's 18 to 20. I think it's worth it for what it's worth. It's certainly not a value proposition for them, but they keep selling it as fast as they can. It's
Right.
highly allocated now. You know, there's no getting a case of Booker's anymore. And so bourbon in particular has done a really good job of staying solid. And even as the price increases, the consumer base has understood that's what's happening, and then they've paid. So
Yeah, I would think a lot of that high price growth is just in that super premium category anyway. We'll ask some distillers when we get them on stage whether that gives them permission to take price at the lower end, at that $30 end. Does it go to 35, 40? I don't know, but it does seem to be that's pulling everything else up. But I mean, I've talked to, it was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago, and I called Max Shapiro. It was a year ago, and I said, how's it going today? And he said, I never thought I would be worried about the price of bottle caps. Screw caps.
yeah, everybody's costs have gone up. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, in no way is it a point to the market changing. It's just the cost, the availability of these high-end things, they've just gone down. I mean, the more popular something is, the faster it's going to go away, right?
So back to your restaurant and bourbon. I mean, is the consumer more educated now? The ones that come to see you guys, or are they still in the learning phase? I mean, do they really know what they're talking about when they're talking about bourbon and how it goes with your meals?
There's so many angles to talk about bourbon that I would say overall everybody is more educated, right? So some people are looking for things that are one-offs. Some people are looking for things because they're expensive. Some people are looking for things that they can access everywhere. Some people are looking for things in a certain proof category. I mean, so I think overall, yes, people are more educated, and I would say that there's more nuance into the particulars that anybody is looking for from any pour.
So it's not. It seemed to me 10 years ago when I started writing about it that people were wedded to brands, and I keep hearing from distilleries that was a thing of the past of previous generations, that once you got that brand, that was yours until you died, and now people have no problem hopping across brands.
100%.
And it's not disloyalty; it's just that they're interested in the adventure.
Yeah, and I mean,
would agree
I
with
think
that.
that's part of it, and part of it is, there are still core brands, right, that people go after. They still exist, and I mean, honestly, our friend Roy Lee down here with Maker's Mark is a good example of that. I think that, those core brands last, though, when they don't change what it is they're up to. And that's why you get customers that last forever, is they believe they're getting, or they're getting the same thing that they started with and end with. And now with all the innovation going on, it's easy to try a lot of people and, I don't know, I guess just bounce around a little bit.
That's fun. So, if you were to say, let's kind of good and bad here. What's the biggest challenge with the modern bourbon customer?
Woo, that's hot.
Getting enough of them in. There's no challenge to a customer, man. It's there's people. Everybody wants the same pours. Everybody wants to get purple, purple top Willets. Everybody wants to get William LaRue Weller. I mean, and so tempering expectations a little bit and just explaining that at some point you can do anything for sure, but in a restaurant it's almost impossible, right? Those bottles, they go to Total Wine. Let's be perfectly honest. It's people that sell the most Fireball get the most Pappy, and that's just how it works. And so restaurants,
You're not selling Fireball at Harrison Smith.
We don't sell it. We might keep a couple shots in the back for if you make a mistake. It's our mistake shot. But seriously, but no, I mean, that's the biggest difficulty is just tempering expectations on what they can and can't see. But that's it. I mean, once you explain that there's infinite number of single barrels, an infinite number of recipes that you can try, and here is another version of this weeded bourbon that you're going crazy over. That's how we usually deal with that challenge, I think.
All right. So what's the most fun part about it? Is it that they're just
You take the fun one.
Steve, honestly, we wouldn't do this any days if it wasn't at least somewhat fun. There's no reason to. No one should open a restaurant if it doesn't feel good to them. And there's still really hard days, right? But I always tell people it's a little bit like I am not an artist, but I can only imagine that you have a calling a little bit, and if you want to do it, then it's a labor of love.
Hospitality when things go well is really fun. It's when people appreciate it. Yeah.
The end of every party is amazing. You know what I mean?
What?
The end of every party is amazing. And, the lead up and everything, it might not seem like we're having a great time, but the reality is that ending is what you do it all for. I mean, that's why you do it, is to see their faces and, I guess get an Instagram tag or something nowadays. That's the modern way to say thank you. But yeah, that's the fun part.
Excellent. Any chance anybody has a question for these fine people before we end this lovely interview?
Nobody?
Noah?
Oh,
There's a question. Captain America, what's your question? Harrison Smith House. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. It's Harrison Smith House.
So a little
Quarter mile over.
Yeah, we do 90 to 95% private events, private dining. So I really shouldn't say events. It's more small groups and bespoke menus. And then the other 5 to 10%, we are open to the public for pop-ups and with a changing menu. It's kind of whatever we feel like rolling out. So Saturday we do have a pop-up on our patio. Ooh, I'm sorry. And it'll be hamburgers at 5 to 8 p.m.
They do it all. Do it crazy. All right. That's it for this round of Bourbon 30. And just in case you want to know what everything means, if you haven't figured it out on your own, Bourbon 30 is always the time when everybody says, well, it's Bourbon 30. Let's drink, right? Bourbon 30 also means 30 minutes, and it's on the half hour. So come back on the half hour for next session of Bourbon 30, sponsored by Great Western Malting. Thank you very much, sponsors. We love you. We appreciate you. And thank you guys for coming aboard.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Steve.
And taking the first one.
Hey, there
Yeah.
we go. Great crowd. Thank
Lovely
y'all.
people. All right, thanks. Cheers.